All right, everybody, it is time for us to do what everybody does best, which is argue about pointless stuff on the internet, except this time you are the one throwing out your hot takes. I will react to it. I will be the voice of reason. I will expose you for the irrational, emotional hothead that you are, and I will reveal myself to be the voice of reason. I will reveal myself to be the enlightened centrist who is above the fray. That's what we're going to do today. So let's check it out. First one we have here from Jacob Conklin. Apple Music is equal to, if not better than Spotify. I know you're going to say that Apple Music is the Android of streaming platforms. I am going to say that because it's true. But you never give your reasons why Spotify is so much better. They offer a lot of the same things. Okay, Jacob, here's the thing. If you go into any of these conversations debating, oh, well, what about the quality and what about this feature and that? No, listen, you're missing the point. It's not about which one sounds better. It's not about which one has the better UI. It's not about which one pays artists more. None of that matters. What matters is that you want to be doing the same thing as all the popular people, okay? This is how to think. Whatever product is popular, you buy that, okay? Because you don't want to be weird. Girls don't sleep with Android or Apple Music users. That's what it comes down to, okay? At the end of the day, your job on this earth is very simple. Your job is to ensure the survival of the species by spreading your DNA. Think about it this way. If you're an attractive young lady, who would you rather procreate with? A guy using Deezer on his Android? Or, perhaps the attractive Chad listening to Rap Caviar on Spotify? It seems like a pretty simple matter to me. So when it comes down to it, Jacob, it's about this. It's about ensuring the survival of the species. It's about evolutionary biology. And by using the popular product, what you're signaling to the world is that you are fit for reproduction. Women sleep with physical media buyers. That's a good one. That's a good one. Imagine being out on a date and the girl sees you using Apple Music and the face she makes. Her parts just went drier than the Sahara Desert. Yeah, if a baddie gets in your car, connects to CarPlay, and you tell her to play whatever she wants on Apple Music, she's going to dry up like the Sahara in the summer. That's what it comes down to. So this is my advice, people. You want to play for the winning team, okay? Whatever is popular, just buy that. Whatever cool people like, just say you like that. You want to play for the winning team. What if I like physical and streaming? You got to pick one, buddy. Pick one. I know a guy who uses YouTube Music. His wife cheated on him. That's it. Kind of says it all, right? Okay. Next up, from Castellano Tol y Coste, Doris by Suicide Silence is actually a good song. People hate it because of the sudden change of sound. Probably will go through the 10-year rule. I agree with this one. Let's check it out. This was from Suicide Silence's self-titled album back in 2017, I think. This was a big change of pace for the band. So obviously they were kind of, deathcore before this. And then they came out with this album. And basically because of Jared Dines making fun of the tee-hee thing, I feel like it kind of ruined people's perception of the album. And I do agree with this. Like, people weren't ready at the time, but I think people are going to consider this a classic very soon. I think this sounds good. I love the production. This is the part people didn't like. Yeah, listen, I don't love that part of the song. I don't think it's fantastic, but I certainly don't think it's as bad as everyone sort of acted like it was at the time, especially because this is before everybody decided that Deftones was their favorite band. Again, I don't think it's the best thing that they've ever done, but I still respect that they tried to do something different. I feel like if they came out with this now, people would probably say it was great because it sounds like Deftones. Yeah, exactly. If this album came out 5 years later, I bet it would have blown up because then everyone decided that Deftones are the best band in the world because baddies on TikTok like Deftones or whatever. And yeah, I think it's just another case of them being sort of ahead of the curve. The other thing that I think is sort of a tough thing for them is because Mitch was obviously such an important part of the band, it's kind of like, I think they had to do something different because when Eddie first joined the band, they said, oh, he's just trying to sound like Mitch, which, I mean, he was, because he should. So it's like, on the one hand, they're screwed if they try to sound like old Suicide Silence. On the other hand, if they try to do something different, you know, people say that it's crap and they should go back to the old thing. You know, just kind of the same thing of you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Yeah, I don't think this is their best song, but I definitely don't think it's as bad as people thought it was and sort of made it sound like it was at the time. So that is my take. I agree with you. I think it's good. Or certainly not as bad as people made it sound at the time. That's what I think. Pulu Poro says, it's not really a hot take, but the 2020s pop punk revival imploded very fast, even quicker than the early 2010s wave. Yeah, I mean, this is true, and it was really kind of disappointing. So what he's talking about is all the stuff like this from back in the COVID years, like Jaden. Came out summer of 2020. I hate how good looking this guy is. I mean, this is all basically just in the wake of MGK. This guy definitely took my lunch money. He definitely took your bitch. That's what he did. He definitely took your bitch. It's true. I felt like at the time it was really cool seeing this stuff blow up. You know, it felt like there was something happening. It was a wave. Again, all in the wake of MGK. But then, you know, there was like Jaden and Lil Huddy and whatever. Like, it seemed like we're on the verge of having another wave of pop punk. But I don't know, it felt like, probably by 2022 or something like that. It felt like maybe 2 years it lasted before it all went away. And it just, you know, it's like everything that Travis Barker played on and, you know, everyone trying to be MGK. This guy could get away with an Apple Music membership. It's true. Listen, Jaden can listen to Apple Music on his Android. You cannot. I've been trying to think of why it sort of fizzled out. And I think a lot of it is because it really just was so derivative. A lot of these songs are just fine. But number one, it was very derivative, like everyone just trying to sound like Blink with trap drums, basically. And number two, a lot of it was really just predicated on the appeal of these like Tik Tok guys. Oh, I never noticed MGK is playing drums here. A lot of it was predicated on the appeal of these like hot Tik Tok guys. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the shelf life for the appeal of a hot Tik Tok guy as an artist is probably pretty limited. Maybe there's one or two of them that'll end up, you know, sticking around. But basically, it's kind of interesting that I feel like in general, what we found out from this era is that being popular on TikTok doesn't really turn at all into a long-term career necessarily, because this is when labels were like tripping all over themselves to sign anything that got big on TikTok, and almost none of it ended up having a lot of longevity. There's probably a couple examples I'm not thinking of, but almost none of it ended up having any kind of longevity. So that's what I think kind of, it's the combination of the music being very derivative and then also it being built on the back of TikTok. And what we learned from this era is that TikTok doesn't actually really necessarily build any sort of a long-term fan base. So yeah, I don't think that's a hot take. I think it's a cold take, but it's true and it's sad. So many bands have 500,000 TikTok followers and 20,000 Spotify monthly listeners. Yeah, I mean, it's true. That happens a lot. Yes, and this is true too. That and the people who are into it have TikTok brain. I think that's true too. And I'm not a TikTok hater or anything like that, but it is a very trendy platform, just like MySpace was. Just like how many MySpace bands are there that blew up on MySpace, but they couldn't sell 100 tickets in Columbus, Ohio on a Friday night. And so, yeah, I think that's a lot of what it is. Okay. This is an interesting one from Eddie McNamara. He has a few hot takes, but the one I want to address here is this: straight edge hardcore is punk rock for rich jocks. I've heard this many times over the years, and it's wrong. It's wrong. Let's talk about it. How about this? Let's listen to Too Pure to Die. Some real rock and roll. This whole thing about like hardcore being for like rich jocks, I don't know where this comes from. I feel like people want it to be true when it's not. Let me tell you, rich jocks have a lot better things to do than going to some fucking hardcore show at a VFW hall, you know, on a Saturday night with a bunch of other like angry dudes in camo shorts, okay? The rich jocks are busy like finger blasting the cheerleader, you know, under the bleachers at the football game, not hanging out with a bunch of fucking weirdos at this hardcore show. I mean, I suppose it's regional, I guess. I'm sure there are some rich kids that are into hardcore, but I've never known anybody that was into hardcore that was rich that I can think of. I mean, maybe, you know, probably if there's hardcore kids in like Dana Point, California, which there are, obviously by definition, those are going to be rich kids. But, you know, this kind of music is for the same. It's no different. Like maybe they wear Nikes or something like that, and that makes you think that they're jocks, but hardcore is for dysfunctional, poor, fucking weirdo losers. I mean, I would consider myself one of those. I mean, I grew up on welfare with divorced parents and all that same kind of shit. Yeah, rich jocks listen to Drake and Sublime. That's right. Rich jocks don't go to shows, they go to parties. Obviously, there are some rich kids that, you know, aren't hardcore, like they exist, but this whole idea that this kind of music is for like rich jocks is like, it's silly. These are all like fucked up, depressed, angry kids from like households with divorced alcoholic parents, just like people that are into any other kind of alternative music. You know, they maybe are like, they might look a little bit more, you know, maybe they lift weights or something like that. And so perhaps they're like a little bit less low testosterone than other kinds of alternative music. But yeah, just definitely like, where does this come from? Like this whole idea of like, oh, these are all these kids have a trust fund. I've never known anybody in my life with a trust fund. I've never heard of that. Like what even, I don't even really know what a trust fund is. Everybody I know that was into this kind of music was a broke fucking loser from a blue collar family just like me. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like this is a story that is told by people who hate themselves. What even is a rich jock in the 2020s? That's true too. This is a story told by people who hate themselves because they want to believe that the world is out to get them. And if they don't like something, then it can't be that these people, listen, here's the facts, okay? The kind of people that say that sort of stuff are betas. That's what it is. They're low testosterone betas. That's what it is. They're betas. They're just mad because when they go to a hardcore show, they're afraid that somebody's going to beat them up because they're pussies. That's what it is. They think it'll make themselves feel better if they say, these guys are all a bunch of rich jocks, instead of saying, I'm a pussy and I'm going to get beat up if I go to the show. So guess what? Just don't go to the show. Hardcore's not for you. I played in hardcore bands growing up and no one that I knew in that scene was a rich kid. Yeah, it's a myth. It's an urban legend, people. Urban legend. So I'm sorry, Eddie, you're wrong on that one. Mike Mayano says Hardy and Lakeview are making far better music that incorporates heavy guitars than 99% of metalcore bands right now. It's not long before they start taking over a good chunk of that space. It's new and refreshing. It's fun to listen to, and all three guys make good frontmen. Well, I can agree with this one. I love Lakeview. Let's listen to Lakeview. Yeah, I love them.
Working 60 hours cause he's saving for a diamond ring.
Tailgate corn, that's what it is.
I work my fingers to the bone.
Yeah, Hardy is an amazing songwriter, that's for sure. New Boot Goofin', that's right.
This one's for the home team.
Unironic? Hell yeah, it's unironically good.
Just like me. This one's for the home team.
Now, as you can probably tell, these guys have got some riffs, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why those guys have some riffs is because one of the guys was in this band. You can see him over here playing guitar. That's where the riffs are from. Christian band. Christian moshcore. Yeah, this band is fucking awesome. So now they're doing this. And I love what they're doing. For one, because these songs are just like legitimately great. Second, because it's like finally some music with guitars that's not catered to like fucking nerdy dudes on Reddit that jerk off over fucking guitars. When I think of the target audience for this band, what I think of is the country mommy that lives in the suburbs, you know, in a subdivision home, and maybe has kids, you know, named Jackson, Paxton, Braden, Caden, and Jaden. She's got the balayage hair, probably like a little bit low-key anti-vaxxer, but she's also got like hand tattoos, like the edgy country mommy, right? That's what I think of. She's got a "Don't Step on My Snake" sticker on her car. Yeah, pumpkin spice seasoned wipes, but a little bit red-pilled. That's what I think of. might have voted for Trump, but maybe not. We can't rule it out. Yeah, she's got a Bible quote on the back of her car. But in all seriousness, I mean, I think it's legitimately important that artists like this are catering to an audience of people that, you know, isn't just these fucking dorky metal dudes. And I mean, that's important. We don't want everyone in the scene to be a bearded fucking nerd who jerks off over guitars. And yeah, I think it's awesome. I think their songwriting is top notch, and I respect that they're bringing some country mommies into the scene. That's what I think. Here's a very unfortunate one from Karagoth. Transgenderism has no place in the metal industry. Metal is not all-inclusive and never should be. We used to go to shows to get away from losers, not stand shoulder to shoulder to them. Now they're wearing body cams and shit to shows to snitch on pitters, get them out. Well, I find it very interesting that a lot of people call me a transphobe. And I want to sort of set the record straight here. I've never been absolutely anything but completely supportive of trans people. I've never said anything negative about trans people, and I never will, because I'm completely supportive of trans people. With that being said, unfortunately, I think this person is right when he said transgenderism has no place in the metal industry. Metal is not all inclusive. I mean, that's true. It's not. That's one of the reasons why I think metal is trash, because people like this are everywhere in metal. There's so many just like ignorant fucking losers in metal. It's true. So I'm sorry. If you're trans, I think you are not welcome at metal shows. Unfortunately, like, these people are everywhere in metal. So my advice is stay the fuck away from them. Now, I want to be clear. Metal and hardcore are two very, very different things. Okay? Hardcore is not like this at all. I would say at a hardcore show, it's very likely that if you were not very likely, I would say it's like almost a certain thing that if you go to a hardcore show and you're like visibly transphobic or bigoted in any way, I think it's a very good chance that you get your ass beat, as you should. Metal is different. Metal is ignorant and backwards and basically a bunch of mouth-breathing cavemen. Hardcore is a different matter, okay? So I want to be clear about that. But yeah, I mean, I think this person is unfortunately right. And so yeah, I mean, this is one of the many reasons why I think metal is absolute trash. That's what I think. It's wild because metalheads swear they're the most accepting and kind people ever. They sure do. They sure do. They'll tell you all day long that everyone's welcome, but they're not. It's false. It's a lie. Metal is ignorant. It just is. Like, put it this way. I used to be a Pantera apologist. I will admit that. I used to be a Pantera apologist, but then I saw this video of Dimebag Darrell just straight up saying the N-word at NAMM without like flinching at all. And then, you know, he's also got the Confederate flag guitar, and, you know, and then Phil has said all the things that he said. And at a certain point, you're like, well, you just got to call it what it is. Like, clearly, if it walks like a racist and talks like a racist, then it probably is a racist. And at a certain point, you just got to stop making excuses for it. And yet, absolutely nobody cares. Everyone's totally cool with it, right? Nobody cares. So that tells you everything about metal. So this guy sucks, but unfortunately, he is correct. But on a lighter note, J7X says Sydney Sweeney's boobs have a larger following than all of metalcore. This is objectively true. Here's an example of it. Sydney Sweeney going viral after being one of top watched SNL episodes. This got like hundreds of millions of views. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of views because boobies exist. So that's true. And listen, here's my question. I don't personally find her attractive. She's not my type. But which would you rather look at? Would you rather look at this, or would you rather look at a bunch of guys with beards genting in a colored room? Huh? Seems like a pretty obvious thing to me. Okay, that does it for this edition of me reacting to your hot takes. Join us next time for more. The kind of people that say that sort of stuff are betas. That's what it is. They're low testosterone betas.